Hi, welcome to the Crypto Republic. Before we begin today, if you're serious about staying ahead in this once-in-a-lifetime financial shift, make sure you like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to the Crypto Republic. Hello, XRP Army, and welcome back to the Crypto Republic, your go-to channel for the latest high-energy updates in digital assets. Before we get started with today's business, make sure to smash that like button, ring that bell, and subscribe to Crypto Republic, bringing you updates every day at 9, noon, and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just a quick reminder, this video is for educational purposes only. This is not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. The DTCC and XRP, why this Ripple connection matters right now. Most people still think Ripple is trying to break into the financial system, ladies and gentlemen. What they don't realize is that Ripple has already been inside for years, quietly, methodically, and with some of the largest institutions on the planet. Think of it like building of the Roman roads. Rome didn't conquer overnight. They built infrastructure first, roads, aqueducts, and supply lines. And then the power followed. Ripple is doing the same, laying rails for a new financial empire quietly behind the scenes. Today, we're going to connect the dots that most people either overlook or underestimate. Because when you zoom out and look at who is working with who, at the same time, a very different picture starts to form. Before we dive in, thank you to everyone who takes the time to like, subscribe, share, and comment with these videos. Your engagement helps get this information in front of more people. Your support allows me to keep bringing these deep dives, high-value insights to the crypto community. Well, ladies and gentlemen, a picture that involves the DTCC, Bank of New York Mellon, stablecoins, tokenized assets, repo markets, and the infrastructure being built for the next generation of finance. This is not hype. This is not a price prediction video. This is about positioning. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why Ripple and by extension XRP keeps appearing at the center of conversations about better rails, even when it's not being shouted from the headlines. Okay, let's talk about Ripple didn't rush. It embedded. One of the biggest misconceptions about Ripple's, ladies and gentlemen, is that it suddenly appeared during the crypto boom. In reality, Ripple has spent over a decade doing something most crypto projects never bothered to do. Build relationships, work with regulators, integrate with the existing financial infrastructure, and solve problems banks actually care about. This wasn't about moving fast and breaking things, ladies and gentlemen. It was about laying rails. Think of it like the telegraph system in the 1800s. At first, it seemed slow and limited, but once the rails were in place, the entire economy moved faster than anyone could have imagined. Ripple is doing the same thing for money today, building the rails first, then enabling real-time movement. And when you hear institutions talk about modernizing, digitizing, or building interoperability, they're often describing problems Ripple has been working on quietly since long before crypto became mainstream. Let this sink in, ladies and gentlemen. The long-term approach is why Ripple keeps surfacing around systematically important institutions. And that brings us to one of the largest of them all. Why BNY Mellon actually matters. BNY Mellon is not just another bank, ladies and gentlemen. It's a financial backbone. We're talking about roughly $55 trillion in assets under custody, 92% of Fortune 100 companies, 94% of the top 100 investment managers worldwide, 95% of the S&P top 100 banks, 94% of the top 100 largest U.S. retirement funds, 98% of the top 50 life and health insurance companies. Critical plumbing for global markets. BNY doesn't chase trends, ladies and gentlemen. BNY doesn't experiment casually. Think of BNY Mellon like the Bank of Amsterdam in the 1600s, which became the hub of European trade. Everyone trusted it with their deposits, and through that trust, they became indispensable. Today, BNY plays a similar central role in global markets. When they move, it's because something is becoming structural. So when BNY begins talking about stablecoins, tokenized treasuries, 24/7 settlement, and new financial rails, that's not marketing language, ladies and gentlemen. That's infrastructure planning. And most importantly, they didn't talk about this in isolation. They named partners. One of those partners was Ripple. And here's the direct quote from Caroline Weinberg, Chief Product and Innovation Officer at BNY Mellon, from August. What we're really focused on is the enablement and these ecosystem enabling stablecoins to actually save our clients money, create better, cheaper, faster ways, reduction in capital, and these efficiencies. Together, it's about better rails for clients. Let's talk about better rails. Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't a buzzword. In the same discussion, Weinberg also said, imagine a world where treasuries in one stablecoin and treasuries in another all sit at BNY. Book entries, moving 24/7. That's what we're focused on. That phase, better rails, keeps coming up. And if you followed Ripple long enough, you've heard it before. Because this idea maps directly onto what Ripple has called the Internet of Value. Moving money like information, frictionless, settlement, reduced capital lockups, real-time liquidity. You could compare this to the introduction of railroads during the 19th century. Goods that took weeks to move could now travel in hours. The rails didn't just carry trains, they carried commerce, opportunity, and efficiency. Ripple's building similar rails for value in the modern financial world. BNY wasn't describing a hypothetical crypto dream. They were describing what they're actively enabling. And that's where this starts to get interesting, because BNY wasn't acting alone. Enter the DTCC, the quiet giant. If BNY is a backbone, well, the DTCC is the nervous system, ladies and gentlemen. This is the entire entity responsible for clearing and settling between 3.7 and 3.8 quadrillion in transactions annually, custodying roughly 99 trillion in assets, ensuring markets don't break under duress or stress. The DTCC does not move fast. It does not chase headlines. But when it does move, markets follow. Think of the DTC like the London clearinghouse in the early 20th century, which centralized payments between banks to prevent crises. Their role wasn't flashy, but without them, the system would have failed. Today, the DTCC plays that same stabilizing role for modern finance. And recently, DTCC leadership has been unusually direct about their direction. Tokenization, digital assets, digital settlement, bridging traditional finance with blockchain infrastructure. They've openly acknowledged that the future involves bridging real-world asset on-chain, carefully, legally, and at scale. This isn't DeFi replacing TradeFi. This is TradeFi integrating digital rails, ladies and gentlemen. And Ripple sits at that bridge. The hidden road piece most people overlook, folks. Now, there's one name that quietly ties a lot of this together, and it's rarely discussed outside institutional circles. Hidden Road. Hidden Road isn't a retail-facing company, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't market to the public, and it doesn't need hype. It operates where leverage, liquidity, and settlement efficiency actually matter. Prime brokerage and institutional credit. And here why it matters. Hidden Road is a DTCC fixed income and clearing corporation participant, dating back to March 14th, 2025, for government securities clearings. That anyone tells you this isn't a side player, this is infrastructure level asset. The FICC is where government securities clear repo transactions, settle, and institutional liquidity is managed at scale. So when you see Hidden Road appearing inside DTCC's fixed income ecosystem, that's not random, that's qualification. Now, here's where things start to line up. Hidden Road was acquired by Ripple in 2025. Not partnered, not loosely integrated. Acquired. Let this sink in. That means Ripple now owns a prime brokerage operation, direct access to institutional repo markets, and a firm already embedded in DTCC's clearing activity. That's a massive strategic move, not for the headlines, but for plumbing. Think of it like JP Morgan acquiring the clearing desks in the early 1900s, quietly positioning themselves to dominate the flow of credit and liquidity. Ripple is doing something very similar, ladies and gentlemen, but for the blockchain era, because repo markets aren't about speculation. They're about short-term liquidity, collateral, efficiency, and trust. And when institutions start experimenting with digital settled repo transactions, tokenized collateral, and 24/7 liquidity management, you need a bridge between traditional clearing systems and blockchain-based rails. Hidden Road sits on one side of that bridge. Ripple's infrastructure sits on the other. Now combine that with what we've already covered. BNY Mellon expanded, stablecoin custody and interoperability, DTCC accelerating, tokenized initiatives, and Ripple focusing on payments, liquidity, and settlement efficiency. At that point, it stops looking like isolated developments, ladies and gentlemen. it starts looking like coordination around liquidity infrastructure. And when you consider the current 3 trillion crypto market cap, which could 5 to 10x as RWAs, real world assets, flow on chain, you start to see why positioning matters now more than ever. I want you to think of the Panama Canal, efficiency of moving massive amounts of commerce through a single corridor, the Medici banking of Renaissance Florence, controlling liquidity and credit to shape trade, telegraphs and railroads, laying infrastructure first, then revolutionizing economies. Ripple is doing the same, but in the modern financial system. So if you look at the whole crypto market context, the crypto market cap is $3 trillion currently. Potential growth if RWAs flow on chain, 5 to 10 times. DTCC transaction volume versus crypto, that's 3.7 quadrillion versus 3 trillion. XRP sits at the infrastructure bridge, enabling interoperability. Holding now is simply being aligned with history. Well, it's my favorite time of the videos, ladies and gentlemen. So much is happening right now in front of our eyes. It'd be amazing to go into the future and come back and read the history books for what's happening right now. So there's a lot to go over real fast for the time that we have right now. Why I keep harping on the DTCC, and I'm going to try to tie all this in. The chessboard is changing right now, okay? The DTCC's views of having to cram 50 years in 50 to 55 weeks is pretty unbelievable, okay? Because they have to change because things are changing right now. The commodity wars have begun. And if you think about what's happening right now, right? Stop and think about this, right? A red line in the sand is January 1st. That's when China is going to stop all exports of silver, okay? Again, there's an attack right now on the entire delivery commodity market right now, okay? And the western side of the tranche on our map needs control back. They want to control everything. So what Ripple has quietly done, they have come up with a solution to a lot of the problems today. Everyone's saying, but Swift is using Canton. They're not using this. They're not using that. You're missing the whole picture. I have to laugh when people say this. I was on the phone earlier about this, right? And today, everyone, thank you everyone who joined the Patreon. We're going to be releasing an entire video because I can't release it here because of all kinds of reasons why I can't be here, about actually some of the calls I'm actually having with fund of funds, family offices, and why they're waiting for, January 1st to really make some serious moves, going into the entire chessboard of silver. But right now, the little bit I will drop about this, what's going on in Venezuela is a full economic blockade of that country. What the U.S. is now doing is no different than what China has been trying to do to Taiwan. Now, they're trying to do that over chips and semiconductors, everything like that. The U.S. is doing that over commodities. So now, if they can stop crude oil from going to the Canton region in China, going over there, what makes you think on our map that we can't do that, or the U.S. can't do that, to shipments of silver? We told you on the map that most of silver comes from Latin America, South and Central America, most of that from Mexico. So why can't they do a full stop of ships carrying silver? Right? So in our opinion, and what we're sharing with people that have retained us, and everybody in the Patreon will hear this, what we're actually saying, actual intelligence. Well, we're at war. You actually have the military seizing ships now, commodity ships. So that is basically a choke point to cut off all the commodities that will go back to China. It's not hard to see this, right? Now, this is because, and this is one of my favorite quotes. What's normal to the spider is chaos for the fly, right? So right now, as the BRICS, the unit, keeping in place all resources, all metals, everything in place, right? A lot's going to change next year. Well, the west side of the tranche had to respond. That's through the DTCC. That's through the entire debt backside on our map that we spoke about, debts, bonds, leverage, right? While the unit, the BRICS, the Bancor system is commodities. That's coming back, ladies and gentlemen, right now. So they got to respond. They got to get up to speed. The full thing that's happening right now, we're going over this in our Patreon, the links below. We're going over all of this. I don't have enough time. Is about delivery of everything. It's about delivery. So now the DTC comes in and Ripple and XRP are positioned and nobody else is positioned like them. And I'll come out and say this. Everybody will be rewarded for their patience right here, right now. Again, this is a position play. This is not a leverage transaction looking at daily candles. If you're using leverage, remember Jesse Livermore, you got to have Gucci clarity. You got to have a small trade size. Don't get cut up like sushi here because we're like the remora right now. We're swimming underneath everything right now. But I am amazed about the rip your face off rallies that's happening right now in metals. So the answer is the DTCC scrambling with the powers that be, the big players, okay, in finance on the Western side to get the control back. And the control comes back through rails such as cryptocurrencies, namely XRP through Ripple, because that's what they need to stop what's happening right now, in my professional opinion. Okay, so how does that translate into price? Well, look at the price right now with XRP, right? When things fall, right, and there's whales putting pressure on it, retail leaves a market when moves are not parabolic up or down anymore. Institutions, okay, and funds of funds and people we talk to all day, they want slow scale. They want things between a range, point A to point B, from the trough to the topex, where they can accumulate things, okay? So they're not going to get their face ripped off from some move that they didn't see, that someone goes to get lunch and doesn't put a stop loss in and gets wiped out or whacked, okay? So what we're seeing right now in the price action is actually healthy, accumulation of XRP. They don't want to see something up, down, left, right, like some crazy maniac, price moves. They don't do it like that. They need clarity. They need to be able to tell their constituents why they're doing what they're doing. So we can see the accumulation phase right now in all these cryptos, okay? And what's going to happen next year, and we're almost there, when printed to win it starts, is going to be unbelievable. But right now, XRP is probably the most important cryptocurrency project on the west side of the map, because it enables control back to the commodities market. More than anything, it enables control back. And when people begin to see this, and you take a step back, the trees from the forest from the trees, half in one, big as dozen, whatever, you'll begin to see this, okay? And yes, I normally start to rant when I start drinking my coffee. I love that you panted that out. Because, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot happening right now. So you're in this for the long run, because most people can't accumulate assets anymore. They can't afford 7 years for a car loan. Houses are priced out. You got to look at the normal metrics. Commodities is the last unfortunately, commodities is one of the last assets to really start moving, because it's been suppressed and prices have been manipulated for a long time by 4 major banks. That whole system's under attack right now. That was the first blow against the Western side of finance right now. But if you want to hear a lot more of this, please come over and sign up to our Patreon, where I'm going to be going over a lot of these things in the raw rants that I can, because I just can't do this on YouTube for a variety of reasons, right? But again, I harp on the DTCC, right? I harp on these last videos. And if you're new here, please go back and look at the other videos to understand why. The DTCC has to catch up, has to give control back. It has to do these things. So they're going to come out and say, but no one pays attention to this, because it's like watching paint on the wall dry. Who wants to, oh yeah, that's really exciting, the DTCC, woo! That's not some video that say, I'm going to be rich by having 1,000 XRP. Wow. But you're doing this for your future in 5 to 10 years. You're doing this for your future, for a better tomorrow, and not to be left out on one of the, as far as I'm concerned, in our opinion, again, this is not financial advice, but this is one of the greatest opportunities of our lifetime in a generation. But there's a lot happening. I want everyone to enjoy their Sunday. Please come over and check out our Patreon if you want to hear a lot more things, tips from the pips, everything else like that. And you know what? I'm happy you spent some Sunday time with me. Thank you so much for tuning in, for liking, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts. Your support allows me to keep bringing these deep dive, high-value insights to the crypto community. Stay curious, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day always. Stay emotionless. Watch XRP close. This could be a defining moment. This content is for information and entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice. Always do your own research and consult a licensed financial advisor before making investment decisions. Remember, the game is changing, and those who understand it first will benefit the most. If you're still watching and you made it to this point, here's another little quick rant for you. Do you realize that right now, this is happening in plain sight and no one's paying attention to this? I believe what's happening in Venezuela has really freaked out the Chinese, and people aren't understanding, right? And it's so important to realize that the whole system of the commodity delivery, exchange, setting prices is about control. If you can control the market prices of everything, you control everything. The BRICS, the unit, okay? Shanghai, gold delivery over there is a direct attack. I believe next year, in our professional opinion, and everyone that we retained us, you won't be allowed to send you will not be able to sell silver out of certain countries. It's just going to stay in place. And this will spread to every commodity market because that's where they're flexing on us. They're going to flex on us about the commodities market, and the West is going to flex back with actions through the DTCC, tokenization, everything. It's unbelievable to see this. It's exciting. Please come and join us in the Patreon. Make sure you're on the right side of everything. You have two choices. You can be like the crowd, reacting after the move, rationalizing why they missed it, telling yourself to never let it happen again, or you can be the one who saw behind the curtain, the one who understood the infrastructure shift, the one who positioned early, not randomly, but intentionally. Because some moments in history are loud, but the ones that change everything are quiet. Right up until the moment they're not. And this is one of those moments. Do not blink, because the world is distracting you with noise. And while XRP continues developing behind the scenes and building momentum in the broader digital asset landscape, stay sharp, stay informed, accumulate knowledge. Your move now will be remembered. This is not the end of the story. This is just the beginning. This opened your eyes. Smash that like button, ring the bell, leave a comment with your thoughts, turn on notifications, and most importantly, subscribe to the Crypto Republic. We break down the major global banking trends shaping digital assets today, giving you context, clarity, and research you can use. Don't just watch history happen. Stay informed, stay ahead, stay in the Republic.